I never used a public adjuster. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know what a public adjuster was until like 2004. Like
That's a good time.
I was an adjuster, but I was an independent. But it's like, I'm a PA. So what's a PA? Public adjuster. I work for the policyholder. I said, why would you do that? You don't have no relationships to the money. I mean, why would you fight? Why would you want to fight against the guy who's got the money?
The other thing was your background, man. That's another reason why I wanted you on. I mean, you are specialized in what feels like everything.
A massive hail claim is $500,000, right? A big water loss is like $1 million, $2 million. In Florida, a big claim starts at $3 million. You know what I mean? It's a totally different market.
And accessibility execution is just like, let me send that text right now. Let me connect you right now. And I said, hey, can you connect me with this person? I saw an email. You did it right when you got in your car. I saw the email copied. Hey, I'm going to introduce you to Vince Perry. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, man, that's just really badass.
All of the big, game changers in the industry are usually rolling around there. There's people like Jonathan Sherwood, Paul Reed, Anthony DeMedico. These guys will give you their time. If you ask them, they'll teach you stuff, right? I'm done with that. As a consultant, I can make a bigger impact for a lot more people. And I have a ton of time for my family and my other businesses, and traveling and just living life. The group that I just signed, this is a Fortune 500 client that I just signed as their national consultant, right? Any issues with any property, 7,000 properties in the country, they call me first.
What's up, advocates, and welcome back to another episode of the Claims Game podcast. Real excited about this episode, but before we get into it, remember, we are in the process of looking for sponsors. So if you are an attorney, contractor, restoration contractor, whatever it is that you think could benefit you and your business in sponsoring our show, please give us a call. Go on the commercialclaimsadvocate.com, send us a message, and we'll be glad to tell you some of the different promotional plans that we've got for any and all new sponsors that are coming. Also, remember, we've got our meetup in Atlanta coming up on July 3rd. We've got our course this week, our Zoom course, and we'll have the next one in September. So be sure to check that out. Again, go on commercialclaimsadvocate.com so you can check it out. Now, let me tell you about our podcast guest today. Our podcast guest today is Jason Burg. Jason is a tremendous and amazing human being. I met him a few months ago, or just almost a year ago now. And fact of the matter is the guy is a good guy. He is a networker. He is a salesman. He is just a great guy to know. He is involved in all kinds of top level kinds of claims. He has been an independent adjuster, a public adjuster. He is a licensed contractor. He is an engineer. He's got all these credentials and he's got so much experience. He's been working claims since 1992, Hurricane Andrew and everything. So make sure that you listen to this podcast because it is a wealth of knowledge that this guy is going to be throwing at you. You could also find Jason on Facebook easily, and you could send him a message. He's just the type of person. The reason why I like Jason so much is that when I really started the networking and everything, he was just so happy to help and introduce me to some of the big wigs in the industry. His website is crnpros.com, Commercial Restoration Network. And basically what he does is he's sort of like a consultant. He consults contractors, he consults adjusters to make sure that they're meeting the right people and they've got the right things in place so that they can be successful. So check out this podcast. I think you're going to like it. My good friend Jason, and let's get after it. Thanks.
Welcome to the Claims Game Podcast with Vince Perry. Get all the tips you need from insurance claim advocates and professionals and grow your public adjusting career to the next level. And now the commercial claims advocate, Vince Perry.
See you smiling. Did you like that? What do you think of that intro? Did you like it?
Big Daddy's in the house.
See that? Not too bad, huh?
That's pretty awesome.
How you doing, Jason?
Doing good, bud. How you been?
I've been pretty good, man. Really happy to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time. I was just waiting for the perfect time, and I feel like it's the perfect time.
It is. It's a good time right now.
And the reason why I also wanted you on was because, frankly, you're my kind of people. And what I mean by that is that you are in the business of obviously doing business. We all have to make money, but you're also in the business of helping.
Yeah.
one of the things that I was actually very grateful for was that when we finally did connect at one of the SVG events, you went out of your way, you called me, we hooked up, and I didn't really have much to offer you. But you are still more than willing to help me and help than willing to help me and connect me with the right people and the right people. I told you what my goals were and everything that I wanted to do, and you were just more than willing to help. And it's basically what we're all about and what I'm all about, trying to also just do what I can to help others. And I felt that was pretty cool, and that was very
cool. Yeah, even because we'll get the payback somewhere else. You know, it always comes back if you're willing to bless somebody. It's always going to come back to you. So I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to rub elbows with the elite in the industry, and that happened pretty quick.
Well, and it's funny because you're exactly right, because you know very well that if you help me and you connect me with the elite, and I start getting those elite claims, you are the person I'm going to call, my friend.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. You're no dummy. You're no dummy.
We sow in a lot of fields, man. I've been a farmer since age 6, man. I'm just cutting the fields and planting seeds.
Now you're talking about business, but are you actually talking about farming? Did you actually do farming when you were 6?
I didn't, but the neighbors all around me had farms, so I've done plenty of it.
You're originally from Minnesota, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Minnesota. That's
good. That's good black dirt up there, man. Stuff grows really well. So you understand the philosophy of sowing and growing and harvesting.
In Minnesota, even in the wintertime?
Well, you harvest in the fall, you plant in the spring, and you work your tail off in the summer, and then you harvest in the third and fourth quarters, and then you get 3 months off.
See,
or you go where? Or you just take time off, or you just start you shell out homes by Thanksgiving time, get them closed up, and then you renovate the insides or build the insides during the wintertime. Just keep going if you want to keep your guys on staff. So, I mean, you're a general contractor up there is the jack of all trades. Ultimately, all your exteriors are April 1st to Christmas. And then you're inside when it's 45 below. You're inside.
You're working. That's crazy. First of all, for 2 things, I have no idea anything about farming at all. I'm from Miami. I'm a city guy. I don't know anything about that. Yeah. I barely know how to start a freaking fire if I needed to. That's number one. Number 2 is 45 below. I have no idea what that's like either.
Yeah. That is an instant frostbite when your flesh touches that cold weather. And that's literally scraping your windshield and froze.
I went to school for a year in Pennsylvania on a tennis scholarship, my first year of college. And when we were visiting the school, I was visiting different schools in the area up in the Northeast in Pennsylvania because we were trying to meet the coach, meet the tennis team and all that stuff. I remember we walked out one morning. It was around probably like February, March. So this is like sort of the tail end of the wintertime. And I woke up and we had a rental car. And I get inside the car. I'm already like 17 years old at the time to drive it. And I can't see out the front windshield. And I can't figure out why. I go out and I look and I'm like, there's fucking ice on the windshield right now. How is that even possible? So thankfully there was a gas station across the street. I drive across the street with my head sticking out the window because I couldn't see through it. I go to the attendant. I said, what do I do? And he's like, dude, there should be an ice pick inside of your glove compartment. It's a rental car. So I said, okay. So I went and there it was. And I just had to, and I had no idea. This is the first time I'd ever seen anything like it.
Yep. Pick it. And then of course they put in the antifreeze stuff in their windshield wipers to spray on the windshield to also melt that ice.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Burns the ice off real quick.
Yeah.
When you live in that stuff, you figure out how to work with it.
Yeah. Well, you have no choice, right? I'm guessing that's the reason why you moved out of there and you moved to Florida.
Yeah, I got tired of shoveling snow and being cold, and shutting. I'm 80% of my business was exteriors. I started developing and started building and framing homes and all that back in the 80s, but the money was not in the building. The money was in the roofs, the siding, the windows, the exteriors. That was just turnkey, quick cash, Instead of a year project, you're in and out in a day or two. and your margins were more than double.
So you were only doing exteriors? That was your focus, was exteriors at the time?
Yeah. Well,
in Minnesota, are we talking about in Florida?
Yeah. No, in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I started framing in 84 and doing commercial build outs with one of the local builders. So we were framing houses for the local builder, and then we were doing commercial build outs, which was restaurant remodels, gas stations, car dealerships, sportsman's club, things like that. And I mean, there's some okay money in it, but you're talking about 35 years ago. It was $4 an hour when I started.
Oh my God, that's
cash. I thought I was a millionaire in high school, right? And then you get out, and you start your own job. And I started contracting in 1990, and even in the retail, the framing was just, maybe it's $1,000 a week. That was high end. You were a rock star if you were getting $1,000 a week salary to frame. Right. You know what I mean? But you could go out and bang 2 roofs and make $3,500. Now, average roof back then was only $3,500. You know what I mean? I mean, you get them those big old farmhouses, and you get a 3-layer tear off with sheeting and 2 stories and steep, and of course those would be quite a bit more money. But a couple jobs a week you could still make $3-4 grand, and put your guys to work. You know what I mean? So I quickly just started to phase out of all the construction stuff, or I would frame it in the wintertime when it was cold. You know what I mean? Interior remodel is drywall, finish, all that finish work, trim packages, things like that. There's still money in it, but the wintertime is the only time to do it. In the summertime, you stay on the exteriors.
You go back to the exteriors.
Yeah. The margins are, I mean, the builders are 15-20% max, and you'd be 30-35% in exteriors, even in retail.
Is it still like that today?
In most of the pockets up there, yeah. Yep.
Couple things. You're really showing your age, by the way.
Yeah, I'm 21.
No,
I got fresh color.
There you go.
The only thing I didn't retire from was hair coloring. I still paint it every 3 weeks.
Listen, man, you freaking look great, because I know you're a big CrossFit guy.
Yeah.
You stay in shape. That's one of the things I first met you in person. I was like, damn, man, you are in great shape.
I'm turning 50 and nobody knows I'm over 30.
I love it. That was one thing. The other thing was your background, man. That's another reason why I wanted you on. I mean, you are specialized in what feels like everything. Tell me a little bit about your background. Go. I want you to just list, because I've actually got the list here in front of me. Do I have the list? I have. Go. I want you to just list off your credentials. Just go. Boom. One after the other, like bullet point format.
Well, so I started in the contracting right out of high school in 1990, and tied in with a roof contractor and a fire and water restoration specialist. So if you're going to play in those worlds, you got to have a GC license. There is no roofing license up there in Minnesota where I started, or the Midwest. Necessarily, it's just kind of GC. So everything kind of rolled under that. But you also had to have appraisal, fire and water certifications, adjusting. You still had to have that for independent or public adjusting. So it just, really got into the exteriors. And then my buddy who had the fire and water restoration company, he was his mother had been a CAD adjuster for like 30 years. So she was doing like volcanoes, hurricanes, mudslides, you name it, all over the country and all over the world, actually. So he was a major general contractor, and he had so much work directly from the carriers, they didn't send an adjuster. So I went and got all my adjuster training and started Xactimate in 1991, because he had so much work, he couldn't handle it. He's like, here, I'll give it to you. And the same thing I'm doing for retail at 15 to 20% is paying 45 to 50. I mean, it was a no-brainer. That's what caught me in the insurance industry, is that the margins were, so good,
When was this?
1991, when I started in Xactimate. And Rick German,
You've been writing Xactimate since 1991.
Yeah, and you know what? Xactimate had already been around 5 years. They started in 86. I knew about it in 1990 when I first started contracting, but I didn't use it because it wasn't necessary in retail. Retail was a flat $75 a square, turnkey. Didn't matter. That was it. You want the job, it's $75 a square. That's it.
I know, that's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you were going to try to run through insurance, I mean, back then we didn't have storms like that.
Showing your age again, by the way.
Huh?
I said showing your age again, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, many people don't even know what $75 a square is. I mean, most people pay more than that in materials right now.
Sure, of course.
Just in shingles, right? So when I started, my shingles were $17.50 a square. Sealed in 20s, certainties.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That goes way back.
Yeah.
So so I got turned on because my buddy's mom had been in the industry for so long. She's the one that taught me Xactimate, and he would teach me all the field work of how to measure, how to estimate both interior and exteriors, because he got all the flood and fire losses. There was no Surf Pro in town, right? And the town I'm in, Rochester, was Mayo Clinic and IBM. So it was major doctors and lawyers and engineers. And these guys had good money, good salaries. And when there was a claim, they would just ask the carrier, who do I use? And they'd send Rick German, right? They never sent an adjuster. He was the adjuster. He went and bid the job, and they cut him a check. I fell into that of overflow of work that he had. So that's why I stayed in. And that's why I went into adjusting, is because when you start picking up jobs that are just, there's no advertisement. Back then you had to put a full page ad in the roofing section to get calls for exteriors. You had to put a full page ad in your siding. And if you wanted to be a framer, you better put a full page in there, because those framers, those builders, those custom builders had 2 pages. Well, if you remember back then,
of course,
like it was yesterday, the yellow pages were like $5,000 to $10,000 per ad.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That was a huge expense when you're making chump change.
Right.
You know what I mean? So your marketing budget was pretty high, just for customer acquisition back then, because door knocking didn't exist. It didn't, Back
to your buddy that you were working for. That's sort of like an MRP program, what he was doing. He had to.
Yeah, no question. It was actually PSP, State Farm. And then also with American Family, Farm Bureau, Liberty Mutual, and there was a couple other smaller ones. He had more work than he could handle. And to this day, they still call him. And he's almost retired now. He's been in the business 40 years, right?
I'm thinking the MRP program isn't what it is today, though. It was probably.
Well, it is in that particular region, because of his relationships with the carriers, right? But outside of that, the carriers don't play with the MRPs, and a lot of the contractors are against the MRPs too. And I get it from both sides. I mean, I was in that for my whole career, is preferred.
The biggest issue with that I always hear contractors complain about is just the fact that they're just very limited on what they can do. Like, they can't do what they really want to do, and they're very limited on what they can do, and they're very obviously limited on what they can charge. It's consistent.
Well, again,
it's consistent work. Sure, we got jobs galore. I don't have to worry really much about marketing at all now, because jobs are coming to me. But your profit margin is just it's almost next to nothing, isn't it?
In most markets, but again, in that market, it's still strong. I mean, that market's still a $500 a square shingle market, right? And there's really no door knockers down. I mean, if a big storm hits, you'll get the people from the Twin Cities, or you get some storm chasers from, maybe Missouri or Iowa that might come up. But it's really farm country. It's just, it's not a lot of density. It's just a smaller southeastern, western Wisconsin, northern Iowa market. that it's usually just the local guys and the reputation and referrals that get you the business. And even the door knockers that go out there, they have a little bit of success, but still the guys that have been there third, fourth generation, their phones are ringing off the hook.
Are they still, do they still act as the adjuster, the MRP guys in that area? Are they still going out there and sort of saying, okay.
That is exclusive. That is exclusively Rick German. That's it. Everybody else is adjusters are sent. You know what I mean?
How do you feel? Because you're speaking mainly, our audience is going to be majority public adjusters. How do you feel that but even contractors as well, how do you feel that since you've been in the game for so long, how do you feel like it's changed? What are some of the major differences that you see today that
what used to be a regular claims game, right, is you'd get the call, you'd write the loss, and you'd get the check. That was, I mean, the estimates were so clear and broken down. There's not a lot of guys that can go in and if a building burns down, I'm talking about the restoration industry we're in right now, where public adjusters, contractors are writing big losses, right? If a place burns down, I'd guarantee you there's no more than about 2% of this industry that knows how to write that efficiently. Correct. So what's happened now over the last 15 years, which started with AAA and a lot of these other carriers, which is, listen, we'll do an MRP program, but we're gonna call the shots, and we're gonna get that $100 million worth of business done in the storm for $30 million, right? So back in the day, it wasn't like that. Back in the day, it was a contractor friendly relationship, and the only reason it's still in place there is because he has the relationships. But all these other big pockets and cities, and Dallas, Minneapolis, you name the cities that are hail, tornado, and hurricane bound, that doesn't exist anymore, and it hasn't for 15, 20 years.
It's almost,
you know what I mean?
It's like a battle. It's what it is now. I guess you could almost compare the relationship back then almost to sort of a contractor PA type relationship, right? Where it's just like, hey, we're just gonna work together to get this place back whole again.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. There's not even a public adjuster that lives in this region of southern Minnesota. They don't work there. They've never got business there because, again, it's all referral to the local contractors. The contractor is the PA, basically. Right. He's the adjuster, the contractor still. But again, that's just an isolated market. And so for the rest of the world, and the reality of public adjusters and contractors is it's an uphill battle now. Right? It's a numbers game.
How do you feel about the relationship, the public adjuster contractor relationship? What are your thoughts on that? And what are some of the ways that, that relationship, that sort of duo partnership can really thrive?
I think the best part of the relationship is this business model now is about sell, build, collect, grow, scale, and try to grow your business, right? So it's more of a volume game than it is about just doing regular business like it was back in the day. So I would say the public adjuster relationship is really strong for the contractor that has a really solid sales team. He's going out, he's getting contracts, he's getting work, the phones are ringing, he's got referrals, he's got door to door, which doesn't exist in Florida anymore as of July 1st, right?
I want to talk about
so that's another strong relationship for the PA because the contractor can't necessarily go out and do that. But that's the great relationship where let the horses run. If you got a great sales team, don't bog them down. A lot of times the contractors get in trouble with their ARs because their salesmen are out knocking their $1 million salesmen, but they have flaws. They can't handle more than 20 or 30 files, and they got 60 or 70, and they're still cranking more. And they're half borderline claims, right? I mean, anytime the newer generation just throws something into the bucket to see if something sticks to the wall. We never did it back then. If there was damage, we wrote it. It was clear. It was evident. If there's borderline, we would usually write for it, but maybe not a full scope. You know what I mean? Now everything's just full scope, no matter what.
Well, that's what I always say, though. I always say that, I think with contractors, focus on what were the three things you said? I forgot
Sell, build, collect.
Sell, build, collect.
Yeah.
Not follow up with the insurance company, not
Right.
hassle and call the insurance company every other day and send an email, not get the proof of loss sign and get all this crap that really is what we do. It's just like, let me tell you something. It can become pretty strenuous sometimes and negotiate and do all these things. Sell, so you could focus your guys on selling. And then once the public adjuster is able to settle that claim, in the meantime, you've been going out and you've been getting, 100 other contracts signed. And then now the public adjuster is able to get you that. And now you could build and collect.
Right. And the public adjuster, if they're a good firm, they can handle that volume. They can get that cash to turn a lot quicker without pulling your lead. Your company is set up on the sale, right? So if you got a solid sales team and they're running and they're selling and that's all they do is close and to maybe meet the adjuster or meeting the contractor to get the contract signed and then bringing the PA in, the PA can handle all that middle ground work. Get to the cash. That's going to keep your AR down. It's going to keep your business turning, right? And so I think that relationship is really strong. But I'll tell you this. I never used a public adjuster. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know what a public adjuster was until like 2004. Like
That's a good time.
I was an adjuster, but I was an independent. But it's like, I'm a PA, so what's a PA? Public adjuster. I work for the policyholder. I said, why would you do that? You don't have no relationships to the money. I mean, why would you fight? Why would you want to fight against the guy who's got the money?
Right.
I don't get it. You know what I mean?
That nowadays, the way it's become, the way the whole industry's become, you almost have no choice.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I did switch over to PA for a while, just because when I was attracting these large commercial REITs around the Midwest, a massive hail claim is $500,000, right? A big water loss is like $1 million, $2 million. In Florida, a big claim starts at $3 million. You know what I mean? It's a totally different market. But when you're writing those losses and they're both interior and exterior, and you're spending weeks and weeks of time on there as a consultant or a contractor, and then that particular client takes that check and says, oh, wow, I can leverage another property. I'm thinking about picking up this other shopping mall down in Waco, Texas. Thank you for your work, Mr. Burg. We'll get you on the next one. Well, no, it doesn't work like that. So the only way that you, as a contractor or consultant, you didn't have any teeth in the agreements to be able to force them for payment. You don't want to lose the client, but you also don't want to be doing millions of dollars of business and not getting paid your percentage. You know what I mean? So I went to the PA so that I can have teeth in my contracts to be able to grow into these new REITs, these new property management companies, and to be able to make sure that I was going to be paid, because then you're paid directly from the carrier. I still had the same relationships with the CAT adjusters and the carriers, right? The underwriters. I was just on the other side. I'm still writing the same detailed loss. It's a 600-700 page report. If we need to go through it and comb through it, let's do it. There's not one line item that needs to be changed or fixed, or very few. And if it is, we can hash that out. But then I'm going to get paid for my time,
right? Directly
from the carrier.
So how are you able to juggle? How were you able to juggle when you were a public adjuster and you're a licensed GC? How were you able to juggle it when you would sign somebody up a big, large loss as the public adjuster? How were you able to obviously, I mean, if I were you, if I'm not a GC, but if I was a GC, I'd definitely flex my GC license as the public adjuster anyway, because you know that what you're writing up is what it is. But how are you able to sort of juggle that with the carrier? Because the carrier, they, how they get. Kind of
well, and that came down to regulation. So in Minnesota, in Minnesota, there wasn't really there wasn't any conflict up there, right? So in Wisconsin, there is no PA licensing. In Illinois, you can be both. When I came to Florida, that's when it started to become an issue, because there's a conflict down here.
In Georgia too, you can be both.
Yep. So there's a conflict in Florida. So if up there, I was doing residential, I was doing multifamily, commercial, but there was a whole mix of stuff. Down here in Florida, it's been strictly commercial. So your your name is on the board, and on the carrier side, the PA side, everybody kind of knows who you are when you've been in the business for a while. So if I got a loss in Florida and I wrote it, I couldn't build it.
Right.
If I got a loss that I wanted to build, I couldn't PA it.
Right.
Because it was a conflict of interest.
So you would just sort of weigh it out. You would look at it just like, or which side do I want to play on here?
Well, and the thing is, I've always had, again, for 25 years, the relationships with the CAT adjusters, the auditors, the underwriters, the check writers. I mean, I've had those relationships with, half a dozen carriers, a dozen carriers for the last 25 years. And that's where the leverage is, right? So the PA, I just put it on to protect me when I was growing the business and started getting into these big losses and spending, being successful, creating millions of dollars of revenue for these people. And then they would just leverage it to another property and squeeze you out of the deal. So when I got to Florida and started stacking up all my licenses down here, that's when it became a problem. So that I dropped the PA license, went back to the IA, I think in 17. After Hurricane Michael, it caught me in Hurricane Matthew in Daytona Beach. I had a lot of big losses that conflicted with each other, and that's when I had to jump back out.
How do you, I think an issue I know that public adjusters have when they're trying to build a relationship with the contractors, how do the contractors deal with, okay, I'm a contractor, I'm going to refer you public adjuster to this claim, go ahead and work it. How does a contractor make sure that they avoid not losing out on the actual job once the claim does get paid?
Well, the easiest way is the AOB.
Well, I mean,
and then they sign you.
Right, since there is no AOB.
Right, they refer you in and sign you. That was the method. Is you got the AOB, and then you could control and protect the policyholder and yourself. You can still do that. I mean, there's obviously the changes from a couple years ago that kind of wiped out most of the people's beliefs in the AOB, but you can still have that relationship. But there's a lot of times too where the contractor may not need to have that leverage because he's already got the relationship, but he needs to have. So for instance, I got property management companies down here where there's one property management company that's got like 250 communities. Well, I don't need to control the AOB because their legal counsel is, and these 80-year-old board members just don't understand. I'll let Dr. Jones go in and have my whole medical history in my life and my health in their hands, but I'm not giving that right to the contractor.
It's crazy, right?
Right. So in that case, then you just have to say, well, listen, in this particular situation, it's going to be a TBD. So this community, I can take this one and I can write it and I can probably push it through. This other one, I'm going to need some PA service on it. This other one is probably going to require legal, and so then that's how we just kind of determine that. But the public adjuster, again, can be a huge asset. I really believe in the last 5 years that the public adjuster, although we still kind of have, a little stigma in the industry against us, they are a good asset to have, especially in this market, because this Florida market's had public adjusters for forever. What I mean?
What would you recommend? What's the biggest gripe, since you're in that world, the contractor world? What's the biggest gripe that contractors have against public adjusters and hiring public adjusters?
Overpromise and underdeliver. So the overpromise and underdeliver is this: listen, hey, I'll be happy to give you my business, and you're gonna put your money into it, which is great, right, for the contractor. So the contractor's like, yeah, take it, run with it. But if the files are stuck for 6 to 12 to 18 months and nothing's happening, and they don't know how to get deadlines like you do, right? If they don't know the step-by-step operation that needs to be followed in protocol to make sure that success rate stays at a high rate and that you get a strong return and that you can actually cover your fee, then you're an overrated supplementer. Period.
Processes are so important. People come to me. I got public adjusting companies coming to me all the time, and we're working claims together, and they're just trying to figure out, Vince, how are you able to do it? I mean, I think I told you over the phone the other day, I'm almost at about a 90% clip now of not even going to litigation, settling my claim on my own. And I'm working with this other public adjuster and these other ones. He's doing a little bit of the bulk of it. But again, I run into this problem all the time. We've got like a list of claims here, and I'm just like, what's the deal? What's going on? Oh, right. I'm not really sure. Well, let's go. Let's look into them. There's a next step to every single claim. To the life of the claim, there is a next step to every single one. After the initial inspection, we provide them with our estimate. After we provide them with our estimate documentation, let's go. What else do you need? You want to inspect the property? You want something else? Okay, fine. But then there's got to be a letter that goes out every 7 days just to keep them on their toes. But then even after the payment is made, okay, here's our estimate. Can you consider a supplement? Do you want to reinspect? After that, let's go. Let's go to appraisal. Right. Go to mediation. Do we have to file a lawsuit? It doesn't matter, whatever that next step is, even if it is litigation, but there's a next step. And I tell clients too, I'm just like, look, we have no choice. We're going to have to file a lawsuit. But do me a favor, call the attorney today. I don't want to wait for you to call the attorney because I already know that if it's going to go to litigation, it's going to take time. So we might as well start this damn process right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that process is why your company is growing and you're on these podcasts and getting the word out, right? Is guys need that training. I mean, it's totally the process.
I was talking to an adjuster literally just about an hour ago, younger guy, is one of my consultees, I guess I would say. And he's like, man, I just wish that I would have met you sooner. He's like, I've got all these claims that are just sitting in litigation right now. And I can't do anything because I've already, it's already gone there. So there's not much I can do. And they're just sitting. And he's like, I know that if I would have just talked to you a year ago when I had these claims, I probably would have been able to settle them all for something,
Yep, exactly. Well, that's maybe a tough lesson to learn, but if he didn't have the knowledge at the time, then it is what it is. But now he knows that there's some options that he can learn the process and he can, use your programs and really grow his business. So at the end of the day, the public adjuster is a pretty cool relationship with the contractor if they have the processes in place. And there's, I'm just thinking on the top of my head. I mean, I know a lot of PAs now. There's like 4 or 5 that, I could think of that have pretty decent reputations for doing the right thing. Obviously, you're one of those. And, I don't know all of them, but there's a lot of horror stories that files just sit and then they don't get managed correctly.
Yeah. And it's sometimes you hear about adjusters or whatever, and you're just like, wow, that guy's so successful. Look how good he's doing. But then you start to really listen to other people talking and just like, yeah, he's a great PA, but my claim's been sitting there forever, or, it's not moving. Yeah. Nothing's happening. And it's just, what happens behind the scenes sometimes is it's not yet, like you said, overpromise to deliver. Hey, I'm gonna do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. And then that's it. You never see the claim again, but that's okay. Cause then that's when I come in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
The third reason that I'm happy to have you on, that I wanted to have you on, is you have a very interesting business model. You've got a very interesting thing that you've got going, that you've been able to basically take your experience as an IA, your experience as a contractor, your experience doing catastrophe, your experience as a public adjuster, your experience as an engineer too, right?
Hague Engineering, yeah.
You see, I told you, I wanted you to list them all out. You've got all this experience, and you've actually fallen into the consulting world, huh? Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm sitting on 5 licenses right now: GC, roofing, adjusting, mold remediation, real estate, for my clients that want to come down and buy and flip. I used to sell what I build or do renovations and flip. I don't need any of those licenses because there's one guy that can play in the triangle. So this industry is a triangle. On the top, you have the policyholder and the contractor, right? In the other corner, you have the PA and you have the attorney, and then in the other corner happens to be the policyholder. Happens to be the carrier, the TPA and the IA. So those are the 3 different buckets, right? The only one guy who can play in the sandbox between all three of those and not have any biased information or biased relationships is the building consultant. The GC would have a conflict. The roof contractor has tons of conflicts, right? The adjuster has conflicts on both sides. So the only one that doesn't is the building consultant. So it only took me 30 years to bang my head on the concrete to figure out, I really don't need all of this licensing. I'm still going to go take my continuing education courses and keep them because I can leverage that against qualifying other companies if there's big storms that hit and guys need help. But ultimately, the contracting is more. It's more of a daycare nowadays. It's more of a daycare, and I'm done with that. As a consultant, I can make a bigger impact for a lot more people, and I have a ton of time for my family and my other businesses, and traveling and just living life. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. How long have you been in this role?
I retired from contracting at the end of 19, and last year started full-time consulting. I've been consulting probably for 10 years along with the contracting side. But I decided that it was time to go full-time after 19. That was my 30th year. And so I just hung it up, and I actually had my strongest year ever last year.
Congratulations. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I left my house 3 or 4 times.
That's awesome.
And we put $85.2 million on the board last year.
And you market to building contractors? That's basically it?
I play with all of them. So the contractor, right? I have a lot of policyholders, so I have a lot of REITs, a lot of investors, a lot of property management companies, a lot of Fortune 500 companies that I consult for. I do current conditions reports for their properties. I have one client that has 7,000 properties in the country. I'm responsible for current conditions. I'm responsible for cost-effective building solutions for the envelope. And I'm also responsible to file claims if they come.
So you've got your hand in the sand. You're in the sandbox of pretty much anything and everything that these associations, these buildings, these property management companies, these just, anything that they need throughout the year, because things are always happening. There's always a leak here, a leak there, painting needs to be done here, this, that. They call you and you connect with the person that they need. That
is correct. So right now the network is probably 50, 60,000 deep around the country. I can pretty much touch any zip code in any trade in 48 hours.
Wow.
Clients like to hear that, right? I don't have to leave my office. I have so many people that are like, Bergie, I would love to jump into that role. You know why? Because I've been in business. I know your qualifications are 10 years in business, a B reputation, right? There's two divisions, right? There's tier 2, which is at least 7 years in business. You have to do $3 to $5 million a year. You have to have a good reputation. You have to be able to deploy so many people within a 48-hour period to be able to handle some of the insurance claims that come through, because everything that I touch is usually pretty good sized commercial or industrial. And then the tier 1 guys are 15 years in business. They're completely liquid. They can build a $5 million job. They don't have to wait for a deposit. They can deploy 200 men at least in 24 hours. Those are the guys that get most of the work because that's what my clients demand. I mean, you're talking about billion-dollar corporations and billion-dollar investors, and they don't care what Jason Burg has done. They want to know what Jason Burg can do to save me money and leverage my property.
Interesting. Is the majority of the work that you do, is it usually insurance claim related?
A lot of it, yeah. But I do a lot of, again, right now, on the consulting side, I'm picking up a lot of current condition reports and cost-effective building solutions, just day-to-day maintenance. The client I just picked up has 7,000 properties. So I've got two groups, and they're running around the country and they're scoping and providing cost-effective building solutions, roof overs, siding, windows, waterproofing, whatever it is, mold remediation, you name it, whatever they need. They provide that service. And the cool thing is I let my vendor go direct to them because I've already vetted them. Right. So I don't have that liability at 2:00 in the morning when that roof leaks or something doesn't come or the crane tips over at the job site or somebody breaks into the fence in the material yard. They're not calling me. They're calling the contractor.
Right.
They're calling their asset.
That's perfect.
I'm just the setup guy. So at the end of the day, I just want to be the Amazon guy, right? I don't want to own anything.
Right.
Just want to try to control a lot of it because I can impact a lot of people. I'm talking about, we work for a lot of public adjusters and attorneys too. We write their losses. We consult for them on growing their business from residential to high-end commercial, or their commercial business to scale to 20x, whatever they're trying to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's just a lot of ways, to be an asset, and it's all about really consulting, coaching, and closing large loss. That's it.
I like that. What is it? Consulting,
coaching, consulting, and closing large loss.
Nice.
That's it. The 3 C's.
So you've got contracts in place with the contractors and with the building owners and property managers
and public adjusters and attorneys.
Gotcha.
I play and listen, and I have them for the carrier too. I'm a building consultant for the carrier.
Oh, you're the man. You're the man.
I mean, there's nobody there's nobody else that can play in that sandbox. Right? Nobody. So I don't need any of those licenses that took me 10 years to acquire, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars I spent in time and money on books and classes and tests.
No, like you said, I mean, it's the fact that you have those licenses, that's how you flex your muscle and your knowledge in the game. It's not just experience. You actually have the licenses to back it up.
Yeah. Yep. That helps. That helps. That when that gets me in the door.
That association and property management company or whatever that was in charge of that building in Miami, in the beach, could have used you years ago. Yeah, that's a horrible situation right there. That's going to bring a lot of policy change, and it's going to bring a lot of it's the same thing that happened in Minneapolis, man. Really?
The 35 bridge collapsed. Every bridge in the country was inspected by civil and structural engineers and the whole gamut and building officials probably within the next 12 months.
That's what's happening now. My apartment in Miami, the building is falling apart. Now, luckily, it's just a 2-story building, but you could see rebar. You could see the deterioration of the concrete. I mean, it's an absolute nightmare. Yeah. And guess what? The association's stepping up now. Yeah, they're gonna have to, and unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people that are going to get assessed, and a lot of those people just can't even afford it because they're living budget. I mean, they're living paycheck to paycheck on Social Security. I mean, there's so many. I mean, what do we got? 22 million people here in this state, right? And like 60% of them are senior citizens, and half of those are baby boomers going into their I mean. Some of those guys, were pretty successful and sold properties in the Midwest or New York, came down and they're sitting okay. But Grandma Barb, that's been playing cribbage with the Joneses and the church group down there for 70 years, she don't have an extra dime to buy, extra, clothes or food, let alone get an assessment of what the assessment was going to be like, $78,000. No, it's crazy. And the assessment
on that property
on the beach is just, it's insane.
So the salt, as soon as that thing collapsed, I said, I know exactly what happened. I used to stay at that Blue Green next door. I looked at that property because we were looking at condos to buy. And I said, that thing is such a shackle. I wouldn't, even if they gave me a property, I would never move into that thing. Right. You could see the stucco peeling off. You could see the stress fractures. Just walk into the beach in the path between the Blue Green, which is at 8100 on the corner, and that building. You know what I mean? I saw that 5 years ago. I would have never even looked at that building just because of that. Well, as soon as you have those gaps, the salt water gets in there, and salt and rust, salt and metal are not a good combination, bud. Right?
And it's
how many other properties? Think about this. How many other properties on the beach in Florida with that salt breeze blowing on it? Storms banging on it, waves banging on it for 3-4 decades. And what are the coverage issues that are going to come out of that? You're talking.
I got ripped. I got ripped on LinkedIn because I posted a video.
You were asking for the policies.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a look at it.
Yeah. You're trying to help out.
It's what I do, I just wanted to see if there's because just from plain view, watching a building just collapse, that's not covered.
How many units are there? 160. So you've got 160 policies.
Well, it's not that, but I'm just talking about the building policy itself. Someone is going to have to dive deep into that policy to find the coverage, because if you look at it just how you look at it now, if there's no wind event, there's no earthquake, there's no actual cause of loss that, except the fact that they just didn't look after it. And there's an engineering report apparently from a few years ago that states that that building was unsafe. That's not a covered loss. No,
it's not.
Unless you could dig deep into that policy and find an and or an or a comma here, that's the only way you're going to be able to win that case. And that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah. I wonder who is going to end up getting that. I believe it's probably going to have to go to a legal team. I'm sure they're going to hire legal.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? It's just, that's such a tragedy, It's horrible.
It's just a shame. It's just a shame. Jason, how can PAs really, use your services? How can they really just help them? Like you said that we could take public adjusting firms to the next level or whatever. How is it that a public adjuster can really, break it down and look and
right
services?
Well, there's two things, right? So every PA has relationships. Everything is based on relationships in this industry. I've been in this game for a long time. The only reason I'm here is because of relationships. Right. So PA is just another bucket. It's just another bucket. I never fished in that bucket for 20 years because I never needed it. But when I moved to Florida and I understood how the claims game works and how the carriers are in a numbers game now, and it's delay, deny, defend versus, you're Darth Vader, right? Where it's a competition game now. So. And it's all about the numbers, right? They're concerned about their investors, and we're concerned about the policyholders. So we're going to clash somewhere in the middle, but they have relationships. So that's always a reason for me to reach out, which is why when we connected in Orlando, I got a couple different PAs. I really don't use PAs because most of the times I'm able to write a loss myself. You know what I mean? So we eat off the same plate, but in your case, I had a lot to offer because you have relationships, right? So I'm like, hey, I'll bring you into my relationships because I know if I pat your back and get you hooked up with these big boys, the jobs are going to come back through. You know what I mean?
100%.
So relationships is number one. The second thing is it's a service that the contractor really needs now after July 1st. If you're an exterior contractor, I don't care if you're the GC or if you're the roofing contractor, you have a major hurdle right now to try to get business in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't send in for it, you can't mail her for it, you can't call for it, you can't knock for it. You got issues, right? So sometimes that the public adjuster may end up being, the outlet that you need. Right, because if the policyholder knows that they've got an issue, they might not. They got the scare factor. The contractors can't come and do business with me. That's what the state is feeling like right now. Right, they're probably going to call a public adjuster and an attorney, or talk to somebody that they know, and they're going to say, "You better go to legal now because the contractors can't play no more." That's the stigma going around already, right? So I think that sets you up for relationship building with the contractors, the GCs, and the roofing contractors exclusively. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love how you always I love how you keep harping on relationship building. I tell people that it's just so important. It's the most important thing in business, and I'm sure I'm like you, where I enjoy it. I really enjoy building relationships with people. I mean, I think it's great. I think I'm the kind of person where I think most people are good, and if you could see that in everybody, and I try to see it in everybody, and I've been burned plenty of times because of that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I think if you look at people and, you can see that most people are good, it's just a great way to build relationships. And just like you said, planting seeds. I say that all the time. It's funny that you say that, but that's what it is. Farming, it's planting seeds. And, that relationship that you built, sometimes a relationship that the seeds don't really flourish until sometimes years after you even, start that relationship, but it's always worth it. Always worth it.
You want to know something? It's pretty funny that you mentioned that. The group that I just signed, this is a Fortune 500 client that I just signed as their national consultant, right? Any issues with any property, 7,000 properties in the country, they call me first, right? That took me over 3.5 years of a lot of consulting and a lot of repairs and a lot of inspections and just doing what I do, right? It wasn't a moneymaker. It was a relationship building process, right? It's not always about going, I'm going to go make the money. I gotta get $325 to go caulk this vent. It's not about that, bud. It's not about that at all, right? So the door opened and they land, and the first go around is, well, here's 150 properties, right? This just happened, 150 properties. There's 6 of them that are absolute need to be done right now in 5 states. Okay. That was a $500,000 call, right? I've had clients that have taken 10 to 12 years to reel in. Real estate investment trusts, property management companies that I worked for and did business for, back in Milwaukee, or I worked for them in, Nashville, or worked for them in Minneapolis. And then they, tried to do marketing with them, tried to take them to dinner, tried to send them on trips and vacations and all the tricks there are, to try to land that business. And just one day, you suddenly get the call. When you started this, I said, hey, I got a text for Rick, right? This client, I went and serviced this client in Hurricane Matthew, and I scoped out 15 of his properties, and he just called, and he crickets for 3.5 years, crickets, didn't hear a whisper. He just called and said, hey, I want to do those roof restorations that you scoped back in 2016. I want to sign up right now. Right? Again, just doing the right thing, building a relationship, right? It's not always about invoicing that client and getting them scared, right? Sometimes you have to just, do some consulting.
That's what it's all about. I mean, and in fact, I look up to you, Jason. I really do. Like I said, I was really, really grateful at the way you acted and the way you were when we first met, and when we first had that lunch, and you were just like, "Yep, I'll text him right now. Yep, I'll text him right now. Hey," and then you're so responsive. Another thing I'm going to say is relationship building and accessibility, right, and execution. Yeah, I hadn't talked to you for months, and I called you the other day, and you answered on the second ring. Yep. And accessibility, execution is just like, let me send that text right now. Let me connect you right now. And I said, hey, can you connect me with this person? I saw an email. You did it right when you got in your car. I saw the email copied. Hey, I'm going to introduce you to Vince Perry. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, man, that's just really badass. But yeah, relationship building, accessibility. You're so accessible, and then execution. Yep. If you're not accessible, you're going to miss that phone call. Correct. Yep. You don't. There was 2 major relationship changers that you were connected to in less than 24 hours. Yep. That's pretty good. What it's all about. That's pretty good. So, Jason, I don't have much else. I really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. I wanted to talk about something else, but the fact of the matter is that, Oh, well, yeah, we talked about SB 76.
Yep.
That's what I wanted to get into.
Yep.
Oh, I was going to say the looking up to you. Another thing that I really want to get to a place, and it's sort of everything that I'm doing now is really just, honestly, it revolves around really one thing, having the independence so that I could have my company do whatever it does and be able to travel. So that's why I also look up to you too.
Yeah, and obviously that's going very well for you. So your trip to Alaska, and you got some pretty cool things going on. So I mean, listen, at the end of the day, here's what happened. I started my business in 1990, and it controlled my life literally for 25 years.
Wow, 25 years.
I was a slave to my own business for 25 years, bud. Right? 24/7 on call. Lifetime workmanship warranties, which is why I got business. Lifetime.
Whoa.
Lifetime, right? And people get scared. They're like, why would you do that? Well, listen, who's the first call when something happens? Me. I want that to be me because I'm going to go check it out. If it's my problem, I'm going to fix it. If it's a defect, I'm going to get the manufacturer out there tomorrow. And if it's a storm-related issue, guess who gets the deal? Daddy. It's a no-brainer. You're going to find your leaks, your workmanship is going to come in the first 2 to 3 years in any market in the country because of snow, because of winds, because of hail, right? And so that's on you. If you're standing behind your work, you better be able to take that call.
Right.
But all the other times is just it's just a relationship builder, right? I went back and repaired. So I was down here in Florida in 2010, and I got a call from a lady that I'd done roofs for like in 1996. She's like, "Oh, I'm having a little bit of leaks." Well, it's January. There's probably 4 feet of snow and ice pack on there. That was pre ice and water shield, right? Now that was actually ice and water shield came out in 96, but we didn't have it on her roof yet because we didn't even know about it. Right. So she just had some ice backups, and I sent my guy over there and shoveled the roof off, broke the ice up, and didn't even charge her. I just said, listen, this is not a workmanship thing. It's just, it's ice and water. Well, it turned out that when it thawed out, found out that roof had some wind damage to it. And that was part of the leak issues, is that the ice was easily backing up between the missing shingles and get into her house. So we ended up getting a claim out of it, a wind claim, and put the new roof on. Now she's got full ice and water on the deck. But I mean, that was just another relationship that I still have today.
The people don't understand how much you have to work for free in a way before it could really flourish, and it turns into actual business.
Yeah. I mean, it turned out we made money, right? But at the end of the day, it's a 25-year-old client, and they are one of the top people at the Mayo Clinic. Well, I'm telling you, I got 5,200 clients up there in southern Minnesota that are either tied to the Mayo Clinic or IBM.
Wow.
Those guys they're all major players, right? And now Mayo Clinic is, and my family comes from that corporate world. My mom ran that Mayo Clinic for a while. My sister was the HR director, right? Now they're in Jacksonville. Now they're in Arizona. I mean, the Mayo Clinic doctors that I serviced back in the day, they'll still give me business wherever they live. I'll go do their cabins. I'll get called to northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, go do their cabins. You know what I mean? Oh, I just bought a new cabin. Oh, okay, where is it at? Well, it's up in Round Lake and in Hayward, Wisconsin. Okay, what is it? Well, it's like 4,500 square feet. It's just a little cabin, 70 square.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's pretty nice.
I bought this little complex. It's 14 buildings, and need you to come check it out. No problem. I'll send somebody up there.
How did you start? Like, where did you start? Like,
framing.
Huh?
Framing.
No, I know that, but like, from framing is when you started to meet all these. Yeah, I guess that's when you start to meet all these building owners, right? And all these real estate investors is what they are. They're commercial real estate investors.
Yeah. So I started framing, and of course the custom builder, the big boys. There was only 3 custom builders in southern Minnesota back in the day, and I had relationships with all of them because I was either framing for one, or I was doing exterior work or framing for another as a subcontractor. right? Certain trades, decks, or
And was it just by being in that world with those people is sort of how you also were able to stay with that large loss, stay with these large buildings into other states? And
well, the large loss relationships actually came from Rick and Rick German and his mom. So his mom was a catastrophe adjuster since the 60s, 70s. I mean, she'd been in the game for a long time. She knew how to scope jobs, and that's where the relationships really came in for large loss, was through those relationships directly with the carrier. Before, it was just framing and contracting retail.
What about now? How do you make your connections with all of these people now, all these big money hitters that we're talking about?
Money knows money. Money attracts money, and relationships that have wealth attract relationships with wealth. And when you provide a service and you just do what you say you're going to do and not overpromise and underdeliver, but you actually tell them what you're going to do, like, listen, I'll work for you and I won't even send you a bill. They're like, what? And I get a lot of flack for it too. Well, you can't just run around and do stuff for free. I don't do it for free. I do it for a relationship building. It's just a job cost that hasn't been attached to a job yet, but I'm going to get that job. Even if it's one, it's going to be $3 to $10 million.
Right.
That's all I need.
Right.
Right. And then I'll survey and inspect the project. And if I can scope it and run it myself with the relationship with the carrier, great. If I need to bring in help for legal, I can drop a PA or an attorney on it. Great. If I need to run it in the back door to a consultant from the inside of the carrier, no problem.
Right.
Whatever we can do, whatever's going to be best for the policyholder is the solution we're going to provide. And maybe it's just cost-effective day-to-day maintenance so that they can have current conditions report, so that they can have evidence of what the condition is today, that they can have evidence that this commands a stronger lease rate or a stronger sale rate or a stronger leverage rate to get more property. That's all they care about.
And then do you think that, networking events like and conferences and stuff like that, do you think that's also a good route for some people to go if they don't have that relationship with money and that money knows money? Is that a good way to also?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not at the Win the Storm or the SRC or the IRE, then you're just missing out, right? So, I mean, all of the big game changers in the industry are usually rolling around there. There's people like Jonathan Sherwood, Paul Reed, Anthony DeMedico. These guys will give you their time. If you ask them, they'll teach you stuff, right? I mean, there's just a lot of people out there, myself included. I mean, all I do now is coach and consult. So listen, I'll take your call and spend an hour with you or whatever I need to do to help you out. You know what I mean? If you're not connecting with those people, you're missing out.
You're so right. It was such a pleasant surprise when I finally got in. I mean, I've been a public adjuster for 13 and a half years. And I realized fucking 10 years later, I was networking with the wrong people. Not with the wrong people, but I've always been in networking and just business networking and just people in my area and stuff like that. But I finally got introduced sort of when I started doing all this social media stuff. All of a sudden, friend requests here, friend requests there. I start to get into this thing and I hear about SVG. I hadn't heard about it until a year and a half ago. But it was a pleasant surprise when you look at these heavy hitters that are at these places, at these events. And you're right. It's just like a simple conversation and everybody's willing to help because they've all been there. They've all been where they had nothing and they were just starting out and they just want to help. And everybody is just sort of together wanting to see the entire industry rise and everybody wants to see other people succeed.
Let me tell you something. The people that are on top of the mountain in contracting or adjusting or legal in this industry have perfected the ground game, right? Or they have a real strong channel of success in whatever that they're doing, specifically in one or two different divisions of this industry. They are willing to give you their information at these conferences. They're willing to shake hands with you and find out what you are and what tools you have in your box, right? At the end of the day, the top of the mountain is great, but once you get into the consulting role that we're in right now, this networking sphere, it's a 30,000 foot view where you can see the whole country. And just think of it as a game of chess. Like, I want to know who's over on the corner over there in Dallas, or I want to know who's in Denver over there. I want to know what they do, I want to study the industry and know who all the pieces are for every different trade. There's 27 trades in any particular property, inside and out, right? I want to know who all of them are, who's the best, right? How long have they been in business? What's their reputation? Are they good at what they do? Do they stand behind their work, right? If you have those pieces, you will win, right? I mean, that's the name of the game. All about relationships, all study the industry. I just went out to Denver for Paul and Kim and Jonathan Sherwood and Steve Patrick had the new Commercial Roofing Academy. Great program. These guys are dropping 10, 15 years of dumb tax and giving these guys tons of information. I said, listen, study your industry. I mean, I handed out a page of 40 or 50 contractors with all of their highlights, what they do and what they say and what their leverage is.
Is it true that you, before the SVG conference, that you look through everybody who's going to be attending and like you study and you search all of them before you even go to the conference?
Yeah, because then I know who I want to introduce myself to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I usually have 2 or 3 people on my list that I want to shake hands with. And some of them may know me, some may not, but I'll strike up a conversation, buy them lunch, go to take them to dinner, whatever I got to do, just to figure out if it's going to be a connection piece. Because again, I can play with any sandbox, right? And these guys usually have some sort of leverage or specialty, whatever it is. Last year, this year in New Orleans was really, I was pushing the APA. Right. That was my driving force is APA. And we got 8 board advisors on. We got our own chapter in Florida now. We're taking this thing to a new level. And next thing you know, I'm personally walking in Pam Bondi and Ashley Moody, the attorney generals from Florida. Right. And Hillary Cassell is also an advocate for the policyholder. And she's going to run for the Senate right now, or for the House right now. Right. So that's the next level for me, is that I'm done with the day-to-day contracting, fighting on the mountaintop and trying to grind to get the mountaintop. I'm sitting in the bubble at 30,000 feet, studying the industry and saying, how can I change this industry with the relationships that I have to make it better? How can we make Amazon the most smooth restoration industry possible? You know what I mean?
I love it. What is it that drives you? What is it that still you continue to have this drive to really just continue to build those relationships? Because it's not easy networking sometimes. It can be exhausting.
Yeah.
What is it that drives you?
The driving force for me right now is that the good Lord has favor upon my life to be able to teach and train. Right. And so for 30 years, I was always worried about whatever Jason Burg needed. And it's not about me anymore. Once you have kids and things change and you get a wife, and, I've got a beautiful wife. I'm very blessed. I got everything I need. I'm living debt free. I'm just enjoying life now, and nothing really matters except for what's the good Lord's plan for the rest of my life. Like, I spent half my life trying to figure out how I could get on top of the mountain. And the Lord said, it's not about the mountaintop, bud. It's up here. It's even higher. Less stress, less work, more relationships,
more money.
Right?
Ultimately,
more money.
It equals
more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not even about the money anymore, because, we've got a lot of different investments in different industries and different things. But ultimately, I did 30 years in property restoration, and I plan to do another 30 in personal restoration just to help people. I've walked through a lot of different challenges and things in life. And, that's kind of the next step for me. So what drives me is get up and eat clean, train hard. Right. And I want to roll the clock back. When I hit 50, I want to be looking 35. When I hit 60, I want to be looking 35. Right. When I hit 90, I want to be looking 45. And still just doing what the Lord wants me to do. That's to consult, teach, and train and help people.
I What are some of your daily rituals? Do you got any that you have to do every day? Like or like weekly things to keep yourself in shape?
I got a lot of rituals. I'm up at 4:30, and exactly at 4:45, I'm on my protein shake. I'm thanking the good Lord. I'm sitting in my office. I'm putting on my CrossFit shoes. I'm getting dressed, and at 5:45 exactly every day, I'm out the door, training until 7:15. Come home, mother-in-law's got my breakfast ready. I sit and eat. I go upstairs and I shower. I sit down on my desk here at about 8:30. If my son needs to go to school, I take him. Otherwise, I sit and I work here and just start doing the scheduling. What do you want me to do today, Lord? Who should I touch? Who should I talk to? Right? And then I try to shut down at 4 or 5 o'clock and spend time with the family. You know what I mean? So the ritual is every morning, the discipline to get up, eat, train, and then sit down and figure out what the day is going to look like.
That's what it is, right? Because it never gets easy waking up, getting out of bed at that time. It never gets easy. It's still hard every single time. It's crazy, right?
I wake up without an alarm, though.
Without an alarm?
Oh, yeah. I'm up.
Wow.
Yeah, 4:30. All the time. But it's, that was 25 years of the business owning me at that time. Waking up, payroll, marketing, sales, quality control, ordering, whatever it was, right? You wear all the hats. You wear all the hats when you're growing your business. And even when you grow your business, you're still wearing all the hats because ultimately the business is on your neck.
Yeah, it only gets more complicated.
Yeah. Scaling and growing and doing all those things. That's why I love the joint ventures, because it was just as easy for me to make money to go bless somebody else who was already in the midst of the storm. And instead of having to come in and try to create that business from the zero, walk into the relationship that's already got the phones ringing, right? Find the local guy that's got the phone ring. It's boom. Bring in 17 salesmen, 19 crews, boom. Take them from 3 to 17 million in 6 months. Everybody wins, right? Everybody makes good money. And then he's there to support that warranty.
Right.
For that policy holder. It's the best. That was the best.
And doesn't have to worry about all the minutia that goes into it.
Right. Which is ultimately, I think, why I have contacts in all of the states, is because I wanted to make sure that the policyholder was always taken care of. You know what I mean? Like if I got my guys from Florida, I'm not going to send them to Minnesota.
Right.
Right. Or if I got guys in, Arizona, I'm not going to send them over to Colorado. I got just find the local guys, let them do the work, let them stand behind their warranty. Policyholders love it. They have a good feeling about that. They're always going to call you back.
Well, it sounds like you've got it all figured out, man. I love it.
Well,
a lot of heartache, though, I'm sure. A lot of pain and a lot of heartache, I'm sure, throughout those 25
years. Yeah, I mean, it was a 25-year run. Well, it was a 30-year run, right? It was a 30-year run. It didn't happen. I mean, it's not like it happened overnight.
I love it. I know nothing is easy, and I'm sure it's not easy now. And obviously, you still have to put in the work. But you do have this thing you exude, even on social media and stuff like that, where you're just like exude look, relaxation, under control. I've got this, and I think a lot has to do with your character. A lot has to do with your training and everything that you're doing, and a lot just has to do with just. I'm sure you've had your your aches and pains throughout the years of having to suffer through a lot of crap until you get to a point where you just sort of you just sort of start to figure it out. But that's also constant learning, right? Constantly just growing. You mentioned in the podcast that you had with Domenico, you mentioned always having to make sure that you're making that shift whenever you need to make it. You have to be able to adjust, and I think that's what you've done. 25, 30 years working as a slave to your company, you've been able to find a way, think about it, to let me just make this little shift. Let me make this adjustment to make my life a little bit better. And that's just learning.
As a matter of fact, I probably make 2 major shifts a year minimum, right? Like this shift this year from 2020 was, I cornered the market in Florida last year and I killed it, right? Well, that's done. So now what are you going to do? So then I went back to my Rolodex and I started reaching out to some of my contractors, attorneys, public justice, says, hey, we're going to start writing hail. Okay, boom, 6 states opened up overnight. You know what I mean? But also at the same time is I'm partnered in the background with a PA last year, and now he's the check writer.
Right. I know
so when you get the call from that side, guess what? If he writes it, it's going through. It's getting paid.
Right. I know that guy. I like that guy.
Yeah. And when you got the power of the pen, I mean, there's adjusters that you meet. As a matter of fact, the client that I just signed was 7,000 properties. It's an interesting story. How that relationship came about is that I met a catastrophe adjuster in central Wisconsin in 2012. We were staying at the same hotel, and he got on a couple of real nasty, big, steep, high-end shingle jobs, 3-4 stories on the lake, cabins, right, or dream homes on the lake. And he had some commercial jobs, and he needed help writing them. He needed ladder assist and help writing them. I said, well, I'll go around and help you out. We got talking. I said, hey, I showed him some of my 700-800 page scopes. He's like, holy crap. He says, that's a kind of a good asset. And I said, yeah, it's a great asset. Listen, I can consult for the GC or the roof contractor or whoever we need. And, I'd be happy to help you out with the losses. So I did those couple big ones that day for him, turned them over in 48 hours. One of them was 350 pages, 48 hours, done, scoped, approved, right? He gave me all of his work for the next 3 years. Then he falls off the roof, breaks his neck.
Oh.
And his career was over. And I was like, well, crap. So that was the last time that I played up there. That was in like 15 in Wisconsin, right? Because he was the guy that called me to go in there and scope these out. And I take those contracts and I dip them under one of the contractors, who's ever the best contractor of choice for that particular policyholder. And then he got set on a desk, and the client that I just signed called him, and he took the call when they had one of their properties that needed a claim. And he said, well, you got to call this guy in Florida and he'll take care of you. So that call came in 4 years ago.
Wow.
And that was the guy I was telling you about. That was the group I was telling you about that I consulted with these guys. I met these guys. I looked at half a dozen properties. I repaired a whole bunch of properties. I scoped. I consulted with them on the phone. I met them in person. Went out of my way. And just one day he called and said, hey, you know what? You've proven yourself. I'm going to give you the entire country.
That's a great story, man.
Huh? So my buddy who I fed off of for the last 10 years, I scoped his work. I wrote his estimates. I pulled him off in 48 hours, and he gave me all of his business, right? If there wasn't a contractor assigned, he would give me as an option. He didn't just say, call me, right? Because he was a legit IA cat guy.
Right.
He gave him options, but I'm sure I closed 99% of them, right? And then he gets injured, but 6 years later turns into a national account. I've always kept in contact with that guy too, and bought him dinner, and so it's pretty interesting that you just never know. You might listen. I said, listen, I need $1 million sales rep for the storm in 2010 in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this guy shows up with his Wrangler jeans and his plaid button down, beat up, long, hot t-shirt. It's 90 degrees out. He's got an old Chevy pickup, 79 Chevy pickup with a duct tape bumper on it. And I'm thinking, well, who is this guy? He ended up being my $1 million sales guy. And I still work with him today, 11 years later. Right? Now he's in a new house, he's in a new car. It's just one of those storms, When I started storming too, man, I'm borrowing gas money to get to the jobs, and borrowing money to get tires on the truck, and living in the crack road hotels. right? Living in a suitcase.
I slept in my truck a couple nights, and then I found a motel with roaches and stuff. It was just gross, but you do what you got to do.
Yeah, I was actually sleeping in my truck, even Hurricane Michael. Now, it wasn't because I didn't have the money, because there was no hotels for 3 hours.
It was Hurricane Michael when I slept in my truck.
Yeah. Yeah, I slept in town in the truck, either pull into the Walmart or pull into a church, or
there was there was no hotels available all the way to Tallahassee.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you stayed out there and you came in on those roads, by the time you crossed the bridge at the city limits, it was another 2 hours just to get into town from those bridges.
So the traffic,
right? So it was still a 5-hour drive if you were in Tallahassee, which is usually 2.5.
Yep.
So you got to do what you got to do, right?
Do what you got to do.
I mean, we all got some great stories of how this industry has kicked us in the butt many times. But listen, at the end of the day, if you have good business model, you have good processing like you do, and you have a great relationship and a good personality to go along with that, you'll be successful. There's just, you're going to have to weed through the wolves and the little lambs, because when you grow your business, you're going to need to invest in people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the tricky part, is you got to be real protective of that inner circle.
Well, I noticed that, the wolves are definitely out there. And like I said, just with my personality, the way I am, I've been burned just because I'm always looking at the best of people. But I have noticed that, it's really, again, it's just really pleasant to find a lot of the people who are the most successful are not the wolves. Those guys are gone. The ones who are the most successful are actually the ones who are willing to help the most. Those are the nicest people. Yeah,
you know who they are? They're the Eagles.
Oh, I like it.
They're the Eagles. The ground and pound is the lion, right? They're the dominant guys. The wolves are the ones that are looking to shred from the inside out and get something for them, right? The little lambs usually get rolled over. That's just a revolving door. You need $1 million sales rep. You're going to go through 100 guys. You're going to go through 100 lambs to get that one particular little guy that's going to grow up and be, the shepherd.
Right.
Right. And then the guys that you really want to do business with on the inner circle, which are the 1%ers, are the Eagles. Mm-hmm. They've already ground pounded for years and years, and they transformed into the eagle. They're sitting at 30,000 feet. They're looking at the whole entire country as a chessboard.
And you don't become an eagle overnight.
You don't become an eagle overnight. You have to shed a lot of skins. You got to shed a lot of beaks. You got to go through a lot of storms, right? But at the end of the day, you can rise above them storms. You can float above them, right? And you can see anything. You can see everything very clearly.
I'm still a lion, Jason. I'm still a lion.
Lions are good.
I'm not an eagle yet.
Lions are good.
But now I have a unique way of putting my goal. I'm going to say now, I want to be an eagle.
You want to be an eagle. Keep doing what you're doing, right? Because when you get on social media and you're help teaching and training, that's going to come back to you 100-fold. It's not even a 30 or 60; it's 100-fold.
It's
right.
Very rewarding too. I've been teaching. Yeah. I used to teach tennis. I was a tennis instructor for 15 years, teaching kids from the age of 4 to 84.
That's awesome.
Yeah, did that for years.
That's awesome. Yeah, now you're teaching the claims game.
Now I'm teaching the claims game, teaching public adjusters. Yeah, I get phone calls all the time, and they're just like, "Oh my God, you don't charge enough for the value that you're giving me." And I'm just like, "It's maybe I'll charge more eventually, but it's fine. It is what it is."
Yeah,
it's rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff, man. I'm excited for you.
Thank you for coming on, Jason. Again, I look up to you, man. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the help that you've always given. And I'm gonna make sure that we'll have some people reach out to you. I'm sure you're gonna have public adjusters now, possibly sending you some messages here and there.
Sure.